entities and statutory authorities for 2015. I'd like to thank the Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee and the members of the committee for their work in examining these entities and their report to the August House. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is pleasing to note that on page 5 of their report, the committee has made a comment that they found significant work has been undertaken to address issues raised in the audit. It is clear that entities have taken the audit review process seriously and instigated processes to implement accepted recommendations. Such recommendations will take time to fully action or are being addressed through implementation of larger projects. I also note, Mr. Speaker, sir, a statement also on page 5, wherein the committee noted that entities which had been issued unqualified opinion or clean opinion had various control issues which had been recurring in previous audit reports and warranted the committee's scrutiny. As such, the committee resolved to hear from relevant agencies which had been both qualified and unqualified. I would like to congratulate the committee for continuing to scrutinize both entities who have been given unmodified opinion or certified opinions, as well as for those who have been given qualified opinions. I note further, Mr. Speaker, at page 7 of their report that 29 audit opinions were issued by the Office of the Auditor General on the 2015 financial statements of state-owned entities as of 31st October 2017. Out of the 29 opinions, Mr. Speaker, sir, 5 were modified opinions or qualified opinion, which means that the auditors, having obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence, concluded that misstatements individually or in the aggregate are material but not pervasive to the financial statements, or the auditors are unable to obtain a sufficient appropriate audit evidence on which to base their opinion, but the auditor concludes that the possible effects on the financial statements of undetected misstatements, if any, could be material but not pervasive. These 5 entities, Mr. Speaker, sir, include the Fiji Broadcasting Corporation Limited, FBCL, Post Fiji Limited, Public Rental Board, Maritime Safety Authority of Fiji, and the Water Authority of Fiji. I was going to speak briefly on the FBC report, Mr. Speaker, sir, but the first speaker from this side of the House has elaborated enough comments on the FBC report. However, I would like to just state a fact that given the successive losses at FBCL, it is still surprising that the CEO and staff continue to receive year-end performance bonuses. Mr. Speaker, sir, I now turn to the one entity that received a disclaimer opinion from the Auditor General. The Auditor General gave a disclaimer opinion to one entity, which is one out of the 29 accounts which were audited. A disclaimer of opinion is the worst of the 3 types of modified opinion. It simply means that the auditors are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence on which to base their opinion and conclude that the possible effects of the financial statements of undetected misstatements, if any, their own boards elected other chartered accounting firms to audit their accounts. These entities are listed at page 50 and 51 of the main report and comprise of the following entities: Fiji Pine Limited, Fiji Sugar Corporation, Fiji Airways, Air Terminal Services, Fiji Ships and Heavy Industries Limited, Fiji Ports Corporation, Fiji Hardwood Corporation Limited, National Center of Microfinance, National Trust of Fiji, Fiji Museum, and the Tertiary Scholarship and Loans Board. Government holds shares in these companies which are listed in this category or is providing budgetary allocation to maintain the principal activities of these entities. And these include the last four in the list which I have just read. I am concerned, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the audited accounts of these companies and entities are not being scrutinized by the Public Accounts Committee and submitted to Parliament to be debated on behalf of the people of this nation. The Public Accounts Committee is mandated to examine accounts of government of the Republic of Fiji in respect of each financial year and reports of the Office of the Auditor General, and for any other matter relating to the expenditure of the government or any related body or activity, directly or indirectly, that it sees fit to review. Public funds, Mr. Speaker, sir, have been injected to these companies, and their audited accounts should also be scrutinized by the Public Accounts Committee and tabled to the House for debate. It is the people of Fiji, through government, hold majority or significant shareholding in these entities, Mr. Speaker, sir. The fact that taxpayer funds allocated to these entities in the form of grant or in the form of loan guarantees approved by this August House requires public scrutiny of the performance of these entities to be accountable for the public funds they are granted, and the fact that the Board of Directors are appointed by the Minister of Economy and Public Enterprises, and that the people of Fiji hold significant or controlling shares in these entities. For example, the Fiji Sugar Corporation, with the millions of dollars which government has continued to inject into the FSC, their accounts should be audited by the Auditor General and scrutinized by the Public Accounts Committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, my colleagues have addressed the House on the increasing level of poverty and debt situation. The reality of the matter is that our country is falling into a vicious circle of poverty and debt trap. It is all the more reason, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Auditor General should audit the accounts of all state-owned entities to enable the Public Accounts Committee and in this August House to scrutinize their performance and use of public monies and government guarantees. With the reduction of government revenue collection by 50%, there is expectation that all government investments should be contributing to government coffers in an effort to enlighten government's burden to deliver on its charge to ensure the good government and well-being of the people of this nation. Unfortunately, we have some lame duck performers who continue to chew our public funds and take loan after loan guaranteed by the people of Fiji through this August House. All these loan guarantees, Mr. Speaker, sir, constitute and contribute to the liability of the people of Fiji as they comprise and jerk up the contingent liability for our future generations. Because if these entities fail and cannot repay their loans, it is the taxpayers who will have to repay these exorbitant loans. The vicious debt trap that government has put this nation on constitute a threat to the future of our nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, as such, the reality of the matter is that Fiji is falling into a vicious circle of poverty and debt trap. It is also high time, Mr. Speaker, that the grants allocated annually in the national budget to these entities are reviewed, whether they are necessary or a waste of public monies, particularly if the entities are already profitable. I thank you, sir, and I support the motion before the House.
Thank you, and I now give the floor to the Honourable Professor Biman Prasad. You have the floor, sir.
I thought the Acting Minister for Economy was ready, but anyway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, all three of them have quite eloquently raised many issues, so I'm not going to talk about the specific entities. But I do want to pick on a number of points, and if you look at